Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is know. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways we can use this verb. The first way that you might hear the verb know used is to mean to be aware of something through observation, inquiry, or information. So think of inquiry like research, looking for an answer. A second way that we use the verb know is to mean to be familiar or to have developed a relationship with someone. Know is an irregular verb. To make the progressive tense, all we're going to do is add ing. And that's because the W in this particular word is not making a consonant sound. The O and the W together are making a vowel sound. So that we pronounce the progressive form knowing. The past tense form of this verb is knew. It sounds just like the word new. So the opposite of old is new. And I know sometimes that can be really tricky for people who are learning English, that we have homophones, words that sound exactly the same, but they have different spellings and different meanings. The past tense form is one such homophone, as is our verb of the day. Know is also a homophone, right? We have N-O, the opposite of yes, right? Both of those words, if I just said spell know, you should say which one, because we have two words that sound exactly the same. The participle form of our verb today is known. Okay. Now, let's take a look at some phrasal verbs that use know. And with our phrasal verbs, we're combining a verb and a preposition. And what's happening is it changes our meaning, sometimes greatly, sometimes just slightly. But I think it's really important to know that there are other meanings than the main definitions that we've just looked at. So the first phrasal verb we're going to look at is know as. And it means to give someone or something a particular name. Here is an example of this particular phrasal verb. I've known him as Dr. Smith for over 10 years. So over the course of our lives, people change names. Sometimes they develop new nicknames and really, or they develop new titles, I should say. And as we meet and interact with people, it's possible that I know a particular person as one name, and someone else from a different period of their lives know them as a different name. Another phrasal verb that you might hear is know from. And the meaning here is to recognize the difference between two people or two things. Here's an example of that. She would know her child from any other in the world. Okay, so she would be able to spot the differences, recognize which child is hers. The last phrasal verb we're going to take a look at today is know of. It means to know that someone or something exists and who, what, or where they are. Here's an example of how you might hear this phrasal verb used in a sentence. Do you know of anyone who is renting an apartment in the city? So somebody who's looking for a place to move might use this type of wording. And again, we're asking, are you aware of a particular place I could rent? Or are you aware of a landlord who has apartments to rent? Let's continue practicing using our verb in some different verb tenses. Today, we'll take a look at the simple past, simple present, and the simple future. Let's start with the simple past tense. In the affirmative, no matter what our subject is, we're going to use that irregular form of our verb. So let's take a look at an example sentence. I knew that child would grow up to be a talented artist. So here, if we think back to that first definition through observation, so maybe watching a child paint or take classes, who knows what kind of art this is, but someone may have observed and said, I am confident this person is going to be quite talented as an adult. If I want to make a sentence in the negative simple past tense, I'm going to use did not and then my base verb. So we don't use the irregular form in negative past tense sentences. Here's an example of that. He didn't know that the book had been released. So this didn't have awareness. Finally, if I want to make a yes or no question in the simple past tense, I'm going to start with did, then I'll have my subject, and then the base verb. Did they know about the road closure? Next, let's take a look at the simple present. We're using this verb tense to talk about habits, routines, and facts. The thing we should note is in the affirmative, if our subject is I, you, we, or they, then we just use the base verb. But if our subject is he, she, or it, we need to add an S to the verb. Here is an example sentence. My spouse always knows what to do in difficult situations. So here, my spouse happens to be a man. So like saying he, it's one person. He always knows what to do in difficult situations. If I want to make a negative sentence in the simple present, I'm going to use do not and the base verb, or does not and the base verb, depending on what my subject is. Here is an example sentence. I don't know anything about physics. This is a fact. Okay. Next, if we want to make a yes or no question in the simple present, we will start with do or does, then we'll have our subject, and then the base verb. Do you know your neighbors? This would tie back to that second definition we looked at earlier, being familiar with, having met and developed a relationship. Finally, let's take a look at the simple future. Today, we're going to use will to make sentences. You might hear people using will when they're making offers or promises in the simple future. Here is, I should tell you, so first, if I'm making a sentence in the simple future, in the affirmative, I'm going to use will and the base verb. It's going to be the same structure no matter what my subject is. Now we're ready to look at an example. We will know the test results by tomorrow. So this might be a statement that a nurse or a doctor is making to their patient. It's a bit of a promise. Next, if we want to make a negative sentence in the simple future, you're going to see will not and the base verb. And you may hear native speakers use the contraction won't. Here's an example. She won't know whether she got the job until next week. Finally, if I want to make a yes or no question using will, I will start with that, then I'll have my subject, and then the base verb. And it's common also for us to use will, sometimes with predictions as well. So, will we know who won the election by the end of November 3rd? This is something I have heard many people say and ask, particularly because the United States is having record levels of absentee voting and mail-in voting, and it is most locations' policy that those votes are still not going to be counted until the day of the election. So now we're ready to look at some words that are related to our verb know. The first word we're going to look at is the noun knowledge. Just like our verb, it can have a couple different meanings. The first meaning for the noun knowledge is facts, information, and skills acquired by a person through experience or education. Here is an example of that usage. What knowledge did you gain from the class? So here we're asking, what did you learn? A second way to use the noun knowledge is to mean awareness of a fact or situation. Here's an example of that. He had no knowledge of the accident. Again, we're saying there was no awareness. He had not been told or he had not observed the accident. The next word we're going to look at is an adjective. It's knowledgeable. It means intelligent and well-informed. If someone uses this word to describe you, that is definitely a compliment. Here's an example. She's very knowledgeable about immigration laws. So she is intelligent, she is well-informed on this particular topic. Another adjective that you might hear is knowing. That was also our progressive form of the verb. You might hear this used two different ways, so we'll look at each definition separately. The first way to use the adjective knowing is showing or suggesting that one has knowledge or awareness of something that is a secret. Here's an example of that. She gave him a knowing smile. I feel like this type of sentence is something I have seen in stories and books that I've read, where one character is aware, again, of a fact or something, but others aren't. And they might be kind of doing this little smile and a nod, like, I know what's going to happen, or I know that you don't know something else. But knowing could also mean that something has been done with full awareness. Here's an example of that. That was a knowing violation of the law. So in this type of sentence or situation, what we're describing is someone had knowledge, had an awareness that a particular law existed, but that person chose to break the law. And so we would call it a knowing violation. The last word I'm going to leave you with today is know-it-all. This is a noun. And with this noun, we're describing a person who behaves as if they know everything. So a couple minutes ago, I told you knowledgeable is a compliment, but being a know-it-all is not. So how you might hear this be used is with the imperative. Don't be such a know-it-all. Don't act like you know everything. So I hope you will incorporate the word know as you write and speak this week. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.